With the Champions League final just around the corner, and really for the first time, I think, in sporting history, we've got an all-English setup for both European finals. There's obviously Spurs against Liverpool in the Champions League final, and then that other competition they run on Thursday nights, you got Arsenal against Chelsea. We're joined this evening by two dear friends of mine, Stan and Max, representing Liverpool and Spurs. I've kept my own allegiances a bit quiet. You might be able to guess who I'm going with. But with this round my neck, I've got to say, Max, I'm a little bit nervous. We don't have the best of records against Liverpool in recent years.
I think, I don't know. I think it's all in 90 minutes. It's one game. It's all to play for. It's all there. So who knows? Like, you never really know. I think Stan's got a bit of a different view, but
he's probably quite confident. I mean, we've already lost to Liverpool twice this season.
Yeah,
so.
and then also there's the Premier League Liverpool and there's the Champions League Liverpool, and they're two different teams. So you'll find that out.
And this season you've had the Champions League Spurs, I'd say, that's got very lucky.
Yeah, the Champions League Spurs that doesn't know when to give up. I mean, two remarkable comebacks in the semi-final.
Plus a group stage comeback where we should have been out.
Spurs have had 4 or 5 points this season where everyone's like, okay, it's either Europa League or it's over.
You know what? It's been the same for Liverpool. It's kind of funny how that's worked. How both teams kind of look like they were going out in the groups and they've somehow found themselves in the final.
Yeah, Liverpool didn't do too well in the groups.
Yeah, we scraped through.
And the semi-final, 3-0 down against Barcelona with Messi leading the line, and then it just collapsed.
Then,
Anfield, the Anfield atmosphere.
Anfield and Origi. That's
Anfield and Origi and Trent Alexander-Arnold with his clever corner. It was similar to that 2005, the miracle of Istanbul.
Oh, I won't quite put that there just yet. We'll see what happens on the 1st of June. But yeah,
I think, Max, as a fellow Spurs fan, we can safely say that if Spurs are 3-0 up at half-time, we still won't believe.
Oh no, absolutely not. There's no chance.
If there's a way to mess something up,
I'd rather be 3-0 down, I think, at half-time, because
you've got more of a chance of winning it.
I actually think if you're 3-0 up at half-time, you've got less chance than if you're winning 0 down.
But I mean, the semi-final against Ajax was absolutely nuts. It was as if Tottenham were like, we're gonna do everything we can to outdo what Liverpool did. Go 2-0 down at half-time. And I said, as soon as Lucas Moura hit that first goal, I said, we're going to do it. And then the last kick of the game went absolutely mental. Yeah. I remember speaking to Max when we spoke to each other. He was still up at 5 in the morning. Spurs fans were still scrolling, still refreshing. VAR must have disallowed the goal. I was expecting to wake up the next day finding out we'd been disqualified or something. But we're here. And we're in the Champions League final. It's like a once in a generation thing for Spurs fans. For you lot, it's
it's back to back, no big deal.
It's just normal. It's part of the season now. It's a normal thing for Spurs fans. The last time was 1984, I think, when we beat Anderlecht in what was the UEFA Cup.
Ooh. Before my time
as well. Although I have it on reliable sources, it was quite a game of football. So it's a once in a generation thing, which I think obviously the news has been really dominated by both finals, both the Champions League and the other European competition final between Arsenal and Chelsea. And the thing that's been dominating a lot of headlines is just the sheer cost of getting to the game. I mean, the Europa League final is in Azerbaijan, which is apparently now in Europe. Is it in Europe? I think it's in Europe. It's like Australia's in the Eurovision Song Contest.
Yes,
you can be European, yeah? It's 4 trains to get there.
Flights,
hotels.
It seems like it wasn't very well thought out at the time for the English fans, I guess.
It seems like there's almost an ulterior motive behind it.
What could that possibly be? I mean, maybe the UEFA big bosses were predicting FC Karabag. What are they called? FC Karabag. They were predicting they'd get through to the final, and it's really convenient for their fans. I don't know, but
there's no problem.
I mean, I was reading this week that they've banned 5 Liverpool fans. Stan, I don't know if
I've been following this.
You've been reading this. They banned 5 Liverpool fans and 3 Spurs, but all season ticket holders, because they were ticket touting. They were trying to resell tickets for I went on just out of curiosity, not because I was going to buy one, although I do get paid an immensely large salary. I went on StubHub to have a look, and there are tickets there going for like £8,000, just the ticket. Then you've got to factor in the hotels are now £900 a night, flights are £1,000 minimum.
Yeah,
you're talking £15,000.
So how many did you buy?
I bought the lot.
You taking the
lot. Me and Sepp Blatter, whatever he's up to nowadays. Yeah, we're going. But is money ruining the game?
You know what? on Twitter, a lot of the fans have been vilified, and I get it. But a lot of people didn't get the chance to go to the game. But you have to think about it. The fans may be in financial trouble. One fact, you know, you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. And if you're saying that you could buy a ticket for £150 and flip that over for a £4,000 profit, and you're having all these troubles, can you blame them? I don't know. There's two sides.
I have a different view on that.
Tempting.
I just think obviously it's tempting for the fan, but then you've
Yeah.
got to think about the fan who is desperate to go and will pay, and they haven't been given the chance to get a ticket at face value, and now they're being forced to pay extra. And is it now becoming a game where the face value of the tickets was ranging from £60 to 500 plus, which is
It's already
very
a
high,
nice
which is already
Yeah.
quite an expensive
Yeah.
ticket. So to add a premium on for the retail,
premium. It's a 700% premium.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. And as someone who, in the heat of the moment, bought flights to Barcelona, which was a
Well, you got to buy them before us.
yeah, they were
by the
still,
time we
they
played, all the Liverpool fans had booked all the flights already, so they'd gone up even more.
Well, yeah, apart from the London Liverpool fans, but yeah.
Well, there's lots of them. Case in point.
I bought flights. Made sure I got the full flexi though.
Oh, well
because,
done.
Yeah, because the plan was to somehow get a ticket, and then my flight was actually to Barcelona, and then I'd have to get a train from Barcelona to Madrid. And then I was adding stuff up, and it just became ridiculous. I wasn't going to get a ticket or pay £2.5 grand for.
You cancelled.
I cancelled it. Yeah.
It's a good decision. I just imagine for a second, like, you've spent your life savings. I know that it's a once in a, like, especially for Spurs fans. This stuff doesn't have. We're not. Spurs fans aren't meant to have good things. That's the way the world works. So it's a once in a generation thing. You're witnessing history, but imagine spending. It's like, that's what I was speaking to guys. Like, yeah, you're going to witness history. I said, like, you wouldn't spend your life savings to go back in time and like watch the bubonic plague. Like what if they lose? Or like there's forgive me, like Mane dives and they get a dodgy penalty in the last minute and lose. Imagine how crushed you're going to feel, and you've just spent your life savings not to watch history but to watch a tragedy. I wouldn't risk it even if I had the money.
It's something you're going to get mocked for the foreseeable future as well.
Yeah.
So.
but I think that's where it is wrong, and I think what the clubs are doing is right, clamping down on people reselling for extortionate amounts, because it's unfair. It's ultimately, and talking about the allocations initially, ridiculous.
Yeah,
for
it was
like you get 16,500
stadium.
30,000 plus
for
and the
both
stadium
sets
holds
of
65,000.
Yeah.
That was something that I was looking into as well. You get all these like shadowy messages from UEFA. They're like, yes, we've got 32,000 for the fans, 4,000 for locals, which I understand at least help out the local tourist industry, which Baku needs. And then they're like, yeah, we've got another 25,000 for corporate sponsors, commercial clients. And then there was this one thing that I want to get this right. It was the local organising committee. Who are these people?
Surely doesn't that come under local?
There's 25,000 of them apparently. How big is this committee? It's all a bit shadowy and untrustworthy.
And I think that as well, we know the ballot is done months before
It's
whoever
ridiculous.
knows is in
It's
the
absolutely
final.
ridiculous.
Like,
Yeah.
it's unfair that, like, why you, especially Spurs fans, we never expected to get this far. Why are you going to enter a ballot to get a ticket for a final that you think I'm never going to get there?
Yeah.
But as in, they do it way too early, I think, and it's for UEFA family or whatever. It's just
It's the sort of rub my back and we'll give you 20,000 seats in the
Yeah.
stadium for the Champions
But the
League
clubs
final.
the supporters trusts of each club did ask for the tickets or the sponsors to give all the tickets back, but
They're never going to.
they might give them 10, 20 if they're lucky.
20 people. You can have a row.
20 tickets. You can
have a row in the corner with the restricted view. We'll give you that, and that's it.
outside
But
the stadium in a pub.
it's something that I guess it annoys me because I mean you look at like the TV deals in the Premier League now. It's like, I don't know how much. Last one was like £3.5 billion or something. You look at players like I mean this may sound biased, but for example Alexis Sanchez, who's now being paid 400 grand a week plus bonuses to keep United's bench warm.
Yeah, just sits on the bench, doesn't it?
And
Good
you
deal.
look at the obscene sums of money, and then you look at the way the world is with poverty and inequality and limited chances, especially for people our age, struggling perhaps to put a down payment down on a house or to find a secure job. And you do kind of wonder, like, at least I used to think the whole point of sport as an industry or as an entertainment was to bring people together and to unite people regardless of their economic background, regardless of their religion, of their political beliefs. Is that starting to shift as well, do you think?
You know what? You hear this all the time. How footballers getting paid 300 grand a week when our nurses are struggling, and
Yes.
obviously you have to sympathise because the nurses and doctors of the country perform a great job, and the same thing said with soldiers. But the simple fact of it is supply and demand. If people aren't willing to pay it, the players won't get paid as much. And the fact of the matter is that people are willing to pay that money is going into the sport. So it only makes sense that people are paid for that. It's just the way that the world works.
You do sort of think as well when you compare us to the American sports, the NFL, the NBA, the baseball. But they pay. If you go to one of these games, you sort of realise all the fans are mixed. They sit together. It's more like a tourist attraction and a day out.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
some
more
American fans may beg to differ.
Yeah.
No, they may beg to differ. But
Yeah.
I've been myself and I've sat there
I
and
can
I've
see. He's got,
He's got
but-
the hats.
no, but you
He's
see,
pointing out the Boston Red Sox hat, which is ironically owned by the Fenway Group, who run Liverpool. But we'll blur it out in the edits. Sorry, Max.
But no, I just think I think they're following the Americans' idea of the sport. Going to sort of off topic, if you like, the VAR. My view is with VAR, eventually.
VAR, my lord. VAR.
The way it's heading with VAR
Is
is
what?
as if you guys haven't been
No,
given
but
that.
the point I'm
That's why
making,
we hate it.
the
Well, you
point
know
I'm
it.
making with VAR
It's
is
got more
that
assists this
I
season
think-
than Sissoko.
Yeah.
it has saved us on many occasions.
Saved us
Yeah,
on many
there you go.
occasions. VAR.
But I think what the sport is trying to do with the TV and stuff, eventually
Yes.
there's going to be an ad break when there's a VAR decision, if you like, during a game,
Actually interesting.
and they're going to
Yeah.
break up the game.
Yeah.
Say
Yeah,
a
why
VAR decision is going to take a minute or two. That's
Which it
that's
usually
two
That's a real
30-second adverts. They're going to squeeze it in, I think. And it's got. You look at NFL
Yeah, no,
when
I-
they break in play and they go to an ad
Yeah, no,
break.
that's
Yeah.
something else. That's a
Yeah.
3-hour game. But you know what? I draw the line is where it starts to impact fans. So if you look at all the money that comes in and out of a football club, the ticket sales is minuscule. It's nothing. It's a small percentage.
It is compared to
And, yeah.
sponsorships and commercial deals.
And
yeah.
you say football, but you look at places like Germany where Bayern Munich are charging, I think, 300 quid for a season ticket for
Right.
the cheapest one. Where here, the cheapest one you can get Arsenal Spurs is about £900. And so it's all comparative. And I don't agree with the fact that an away game ticket costs 100 quid. If you want to go to a football match with, say, yourself and your son, it's going to cost you £200 for that day. And that's where I draw the line. I don't see why it has to impact fans when
yeah.
they're already making so much money from other stuff.
It is a really good point, and it's the same for players. You can make the same argument for players. Like there was the whole argument about Ronaldo and Messi, Mourinho. He's not a player; he's obviously a big figure in football. But the whole, they were evading taxes and they weren't, declaring money they made on image rights. You
Yeah.
start looking into these image rights that they get paid by sponsors. How much are they worth? And it actually dwarfs the salary. They're bringing in extra salary, and then Nike or Adidas. Other sportswear brands are available, are paying them another 10, 20 million a year on top just to be in adverts and on posters. So I think that we definitely are reaching a situation like Max. I agree with both of you totally. Like everything that can be monetized is being monetized or commercialized, and there are groups of fans who are becoming, I think, very disillusioned with the sport. I was speaking to a guy from Manchester, which means he supports City. If he was from London, he'd support United.
Yay.
And he was saying to me how he's actually stopped going to City games because it's just like artificial fake success.
He
He started going to Stockport or something just to get back in touch with the grassroots. But I think a more serious question though, this is something that it's like a bit of a chip on my shoulder, and you see it at Spurs games and Ajax games. You see politics starting to creep into sports. I mean, we saw it the other week with the Eurovision Song Contest, where obviously Madonna, who may or may not be past it, but she managed to make her whole performance about Madonna by being the only one who politicised it with her performance with the Israeli and Palestinian flags.
And the Iceland.
The Iceland panning across.
Yep.
Now there's a petition to have them disqualified from next year's competition. I mean, and you just see it just gets ridiculous. And for me, this may be a controversial thing to say, but I say this as a Jewish supporter of Tottenham, who generally am quite pro-Israel, is that it does disturb me a bit. It's nice that you don't see them getting harassed at games, but seeing Israeli flags at Tottenham games in the Spurs stands, you see them at Ajax as well. And then by comparison, if you look at the Old Firm derby, you see Celtic fans with Palestinian flags, Rangers fans with Israeli flags. Most of them probably don't know why they're holding the flags, just because the other lot are holding that flag. So we're going to hold this flag because we hate them, and they love them, so we hate them, so we'll hold the other flag. You get it in Holland. Ajax, they hold the Israeli flags. Feyenoord hold the Palestinian flags. Is there a danger of politicizing football and sport?
I think that line's already been crossed, really. I think...
Okay. So it's too late.
Yeah, it's too late. It's very difficult not to. I mean, Celtic, even when they don't play Rangers, they go out of their way to bring Palestinian flags. And it's like, you look at Barcelona, that in itself is like a political movement. So how do you separate the Catalonia movement from Barcelona? The line's been crossed. It's when the issue with it is they're two both very passionate subjects. And when you get passionate people, that it just happens, they just mix, and I agree that it shouldn't happen, but I just think it always will.
Max, is it redeemable? I mean, Spurs fan. Are you? What do you think when you see an Israeli flag in the Paxton? What used to be the Paxton?
Like, I personally don't mind it, but I think, as in maybe it's just because it's nice to see an Israeli flag and someone else supporting Israel.
Oh look, a Jew! Yeah.
No, but that point aside, going back to the political side of things, I think the idea of going to football is purely you're there supporting your club. You're there for your club. You're not there for this is my political background. Yeah. This is this. This
it's not a rally.
No, it's
you're going to enjoy the game.
Supposedly. Exactly. Yeah.
But there is a risk once you politicise anything that it becomes, and this is kind of what I guess we could sort of segue into talking about anti-Semitism and racism in football, which sadly is increasing. But before that, the thing that bothers me a bit about international football, apart from the fact that in the group stage of the World Cup, you're watching teams who are League 2 standard trying to play football and just sitting there please, for love of all things holy, just score a goal, please. It was like when Portugal drew their way to winning the European Championships. I think they drew every group game. It was just sitting there oh my gosh. The most exciting thing about that final was the locusts that attacked Cristiano Ronaldo. It was they had a plague of moths.
Yeah.
That was it. That was the highlight of the whole thing. And what scares me a bit about international football, and it's happening in politics, is it's becoming so partisan in that you get everyone suddenly becomes a massive England, and then suddenly the flag of St George is hanging from every window, and it becomes an us versus them. And that's where hooliganism comes from, and the tension comes from.
I think you're always going to have hooliganism. It's not just international. You see every time a British club goes abroad now, you see videos of some shop owner getting his shop trashed by a Chelsea, Liverpool, whatever. People been pushing to fountains, stuff like that. Yeah, that was one that was circulated recently.
Well done.
But I don't know. I think for the majority of people, and then you're always going to have the few that ruin it for everyone. But that's my favourite thing about the World Cup and the Euros. Is that for about not even 6 weeks, because we normally get knocked out early on. For about 3 weeks, the whole country is together.
Iceland,
the whole country is together. And normally we're going at each other's throats. Because I'm a Liverpool fan, you're a Spurs fan, he's an Arsenal, we're playing each other.
It did unify the whole country. The World Cup this year did unify the country.
Only because they did well. as in most years it just gets worse.
Southgate changed everyone's view on the British game. And it nearly came home. It nearly came home.
Nearly did.
We got far, but we go again, and it was enjoyable, and it was nice. I think for everyone, as Stan just said, all the supporters getting along, which is rare. And then literally, we went out, and then it's back to us versus you, us versus you. Them. So that rivalry sort of went away a bit, but I get what you're saying about the international rivalry, but you're never going to eliminate.
That's what Stan said. And this is the thing though. You do say you're right. You're always going to have a couple of idiots. I mean, a great example of this was that horrible attack when you guys played Roma. in the
the
group stages
Irish guy.
at Anfield, and Sean Cox was his
Sean
name.
Cox,
He got bludgeoned by a guy wielding a hammer who wanted to kill someone because didn't know who he was, didn't know him from
just
Adam
because
or
of their
from Sean.
club.
And he suffered horrendous brain damage as a result. He was just in prison. His name was Simone Mastorelli or something. When I read the case, he's in prison now for 3.5 years. What disturbed me so much was the guy who attacked Sean Cox. He's not like an 18-year-old hooligan. He's 30, and he's married with children and had a stable job. Now he's in prison.
Yeah, you almost should say that he should know better, but there's not really an excuse for that, is there?
It's not. But again, the question is, if we depoliticise football and take away, just ban any political statement, like they tried to do in Eurovision, just ban all political statements and say, like Max said, just come here, just sit down and behave. Yeah, sit down for 90 minutes and enjoy the football. Don't wave that flag anywhere. If you were to do that, would it diffuse the tension and the situation?
But as we say, it's not. You look at the average stadium. You've got thousands of people there, and you're sort of picking out a few
Unless
individuals.
you support City. The empty hat continuing.
But no, you pick out. You could probably pick out a handful of individuals who cause the trouble,
And they ruin it.
For everyone. But as in, they need to come down. I think they need to make examples of people, which they're starting to do now. They're handing out lifetime bans and whatever. But as in, is that really going to stop? It doesn't seem to be stopping people. But you wonder what more they could do to eliminate it from the game.
And how much of an incentive. It's actually really an interesting thing I read recently was people, when it was in the Twitter sphere, people pointed out the irony that these season ticket holders who've been selling their tickets on StubHub and the like, they were like, wow, look at how quickly the clubs found them and banned them. Within days, they knew who they were, traced them down,
I think
and
it
banned
was
them.
serial numbers, wasn't it?
But I'm not being funny. If you're selling your ticket on one of these things, I think you have to tell them what aisle you are, what seat you are, what block you are. It's not hard to trace back to the club who bought that ticket. I don't know exactly how.
My point is there something a little bit unsettling about how quickly clubs act when they're losing money versus racism and anti-Semitism?
Oh.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there have been countless posts on Twitter, especially with all the racist abuse that goes on at games, where they kind of. I think there's one game where a guy got racially abused, and the team that racially abused him got fined £160, and I think in response his team walked off the pitch and they got fined £165. And I think they made a point.
And they forfeited the game.
They forfeited the game, and they got fined £5 more. It's stuff like that when you haven't. It sounds awful to say, but there's no incentive for people not to act in a certain way. I mean, if you're that way inclined, you're going to be a horrible person anyway.
Yeah.
But at least hand out fines that are going to make people think twice. Do you know? But
it's a great place to do it. I mean, you've used to recently. I mean, Danny Rose and Raheem Sterling. I know that's a painful subject. So we don't mention Sterling in front of Liverpool. He's doing really well under Guardiola, isn't he?
Yeah, he is.
But they've both sort of spoken out in the news recently. Their experiences as England players, and they've both said it's getting worse, and not only is it getting worse, but less is being done about it.
I think it clamped down from what you used to see and hear about. Obviously, I wasn't watching football
back in the 70s when Max was a kid.
When I was
Max, the Purcell Ultras,
No, but you hear back to these stories and what happened. You thought, okay, we've moved on from that now, and then all of a sudden, the last maybe 5-6 years, we seem to be taking a back step on the racism and everything, and you wonder what's changed everyone's mentality all of a sudden and made it. People sort of think it's not as bad, they can get away with it, but why? I don't get why that is.
I think that it does link back to the political situation. It's just that we're very segmented right now, and everyone feels very emboldened. So you have people on the left who feel very right in saying that you're this, you're that, and then you have the people on the right who feel emboldened to be whatever they want to be, say racist stuff. So then you have these people that go to these games. They're all surrounded by each other. They're kind of cheering each other on, and that's why I feel like you see more of it, because they feel like they're comfortable enough to do that, and that they'll get away with it. And in most cases they do, or they get a ridiculously low fine. So I think it does reflect back on how the political situation in the country, because I'm not quite sure it happens as much in other places.
Us at Tottenham, we have a big thing with the Y word. as most people know.
Yeah.
And everyone's got
He just went there. This is.
I
this
didn't
is,
say it. I
this
didn't
is
say it.
David
I said the
Baddiel's.
Y word.
I think legally we're allowed to mention it once before David Baddiel takes us to court. Yeah,
the
this
video.
this is the hot debate now. In fact, it got so heated that Spurs fans made up another chant based around, and I'll say it now. Enjoy this while it lasts. The whole Yid Army chant. But it's peculiar. I mean I remember going to games with my dad. I don't go much at all now. Can't afford it, and it's rare that I can go. And he would, as a kid. I mean, this is back in the day where I was watching Spurs like being thrashed by Sheffield Wednesday. Like the glory days of the 90s, the dark days of that era. And I remember he wouldn't let me join in with the Y word chants. And I was like, but I want to join in. And he said, no, you can't. And I asked him, why not? He said, because your grandfather, his dad, used to take him and he would never do it. And he explained to me that when it started, there was a lot of malice to it. There was racial hatred to it back in like the 50s or 60s. But the question now is, has it been... I guess it's healthy to ask someone who's not a Spurs fan. Have we repossessed it as a badge of honour and pride for...
You know what? I'm in persuasion that it's not okay to say it. And I think there's a few different reasons why. Firstly, it's an offensive word, and I think why would you just go out your way to chant an offensive word? But there are other words similar that maybe other people in different cultures kind of allude to similar sort of terms. And I think maybe it's okay for those people in those cultures to say it, or races.
Okay.
But when you if you then throw a load of people who are not in that culture or race, and then they all start saying it, then it's, as you've probably seen in the media, a lot of people made that mistake and get called out for it.
Oh yes.
So what you have is at Tottenham, you have although there's quite a big Jewish fan base in comparison to maybe other clubs, you have a bigger non-Jewish fan base. So what you're doing is you're basically normalising that word and desensitising it, and people lose meaning for it. If someone came up to me on the street and just went, "You Yid," I'd be incredibly offended by it. But why is it any different that 40,000 non-Jews are allowed to sing at a game? For me, it doesn't make any sense.
It is interesting. Like I said, it's difficult. I mean, Max, we see it. We're biased because we see it. I mean, if you just translate the word into English, it just means. I mean, Yid is just Yiddish for Jew. Like Yiddish is Yiddish for Jewish.
Yeah.
The whole like Illuminati confirmed. Yiddish is Jewish in Yiddish. So, like when you're standing there at the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, whatever you're supposed to call it,
that small thing they built in
and you're
Tottenham.
saying like the thing I love most is being. You're saying the thing I love most is being a Jew. So you're saying it's okay if Jews are singing that, but it gets a bit peculiar. Max, I mean,
So,
what's your experience? Mate?
No, but if you stand there singing it, you're saying I love being a Jew.
Yeah, and I do.
And I think
I love most.
What do you want? Do you want Ellie to stand there and start going up?
You
I
can't
hate being a Jew. No, he's not going to say it.
Stan, you're being anti-Semitic against.
No, it's great that all of us could probably be in here. I personally wouldn't, because this is a Spurs thing. But I just think it's the same. It's all about the context in which the word was used originally, and then and it's the same for all the other sort of similar words out there. It's the context. It's the way in which it was used, and it was a very derogatory term.
But I think it's been flipped now to be a positive from the fact no one in the Spurs stadium is saying it with a hatred and a passion. It's sort of a flip on what it was to make it, but some people think it provokes other fan bases to.
Yeah, that's the whole David Baddiel whole argument, and it's a good thing, but it's also there's an irony that a lot of this pressure is coming from Chelsea, and they definitely. I mean, from my experience going to Spurs games, there's only been 3 opposition clubs where I've felt really threatened. That's Chelsea, West Ham, and Man City, calling you all out on camera, and I don't care.
West Ham
and City
Chelsea
surprised me because there's no beef between City and Spurs. West Ham and Chelsea there is. Yeah. And a lot of it's coming from Chelsea, and their main argument, Baddiel's main argument is really what Stan's saying, is if you normalise it, then people who are using it for the wrong reasons will be like, oh well, they're okay using it, so are we. Why?
But they don't use the Y word, if you like. They'll say they take it to the next sort of level.
Yeah, I don't even think it's that. I think this all kind of links back into the whole anti-Semitism scandal in Labour. No one seems to really care. firstly, but if you were to use it in a different word, and then let's say the N word, and there was a football team that then decided to go and chant that at a football match, I'm sorry, the response would be completely different, and why should it be?
That's true. There would be an uproar.
But is that because it's now accepted at Tottenham,
But black people are more than entitled to use it within the. This is my point. If you're black, you're more than entitled. I'm not there to tell you do what you want.
But you wouldn't feel comfortable saying it, is what you're saying.
No,
that's what I mean. That's why I'm.
That is the point.
But as in, it's obviously hard sitting here as three Jewish boys to say, oh, we can say it.
But you say the guy next to you.
Yeah.
No, but
excuse me.
No,
Jewish.
as in you
I
sort
can sing
of
this. You can't. Stuart. You know.
But you're not going to start like they're not. You don't feel uncomfortable when you hear a non-Jew say it at Tottenham.
You don't.
I guess if you were walking along Hendon High Road and someone shouted at you, "Oh, you Yid,"
Yes.
you're then like, "Oh, he's calling me a Yid because I'm Jewish."
I'd immediately think
not because I'm a Spurs fan. He's not attacking me. I feel that's where there's a difference. If you're walking outside Tottenham after a game and someone goes, "Oh, you Yid," you're then like, "Oh, he's calling me." Could he be?
Not if they say it in that tone of voice. Then I might be like, oh, it's Max.
But this is my point. For instance, you're wearing your Spurs shirt. Some random guy comes up to you and goes, "You Yid." In the heat of the moment, you might not be thinking that he's referring to Spurs, which he probably would be.
Yeah.
But like, it's a very fine line. I think it really kind of crosses it and just creates a really difficult and weird situation.
You just want to be part of the Yid army.
No, I said
that's right.
You're just jealous. You're just a turkey army. Who wants turkeys? Is it a turkey?
No, it's a liverbird.
What's a liverbird?
Oh, that's Mohamed Salah on the back.
Hey. So I think it's been a broad conversation about politics in football, money in football. Are they both ruining the game? Is it getting worse? And if so, is there a way to fix it? Or is it just the way the world is? A really great conversation as well about the topic that had to be had, the whole Y word thing. But like the focus on the Jewish focus, particularly on Spurs, and this is like I guess one of the things that people want to hear about is as soon as the final whistle went in Amsterdam, after that beautiful little Brazilian man scored his hat-trick in the 95th minute, and suddenly I got messages. I'd like to think that I got thousands, but there were actually about 3. I got 3, and one of them was from a rabbi. So I got,
and the other one was from me, so I don't know who the third one
was from a number that I didn't recognise. So I got a couple of messages from people like Rabbi, this is a real moral / spiritual dilemma for me, because unlike Liverpool, who reach the final every year, as we know, this year's the year. They reach the final every year. For Tottenham fans, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It's a once-in-a-generation
Potentially.
thing. Potentially. We don't know. We don't know. It's as Pochettino says, it's the next chapter now. And as we know, chapter 2 is going to be winning the quadruple every year, with Kieran Trippier playing it right back. Yeah, sure. So the question that was being asked to me was a great question, which is, I feel such an urge and a temptation to watch the game, but the game finishes just before Shabbat goes out, and is there a way around that? Now, if you stay tuned until the end, I'll reveal to you 3 cost-effective ways to watch the game without breaking Shabbat. But the question really is, and obviously I'm totally biased on this, but I felt that 5-minute twinge of like, I'd love to watch the game because I love Spurs, but the thing I love most is being a Jew. There's that dilemma. How would you respond to someone who has that question? I'm interested.
Well, you've got
non-rabbinic voices.
I feel you've got a couple of options on that front. You've got the option, obviously, of recording the game, not keeping phones off and everything after Shabbat, and watch the game as if you don't know anything, which is obviously in the back of your mind very hard to do, because you know that the result has happened and you've got to sit there and wait it out.
Yes.
But as in, is the excitement of that, can you generate, if you've got a crowd of you can still generate the excitement as that.
It's never the same though, is it?
It's not.
It's not, but as in, that's one, I'm saying options.
Yeah. And
another option.
One moron to ruin it for you. And like, you bump into one guy in shul.
Yeah.
And he's like,
you turn on your phone and It could be anyone.
No, but that's what I mean. You
Oh,
stay at
I
home.
know when I
you
turn
don't
on my
leave.
phone after Shabbat, I know, and then there's been football that day.
Yeah.
I know depending on who's WhatsApped me if they've lost. Because the same, I get the banter.
But,
Yeah,
but you
cool.
I
could.
don't even have to check the result.
No,
I
but that's
know.
what I'm saying. You keep your phone off, and you could.
Yeah.
What is obviously
Straight
very.
to where to go.
That's your strength against temptation, and then you've obviously got the temptation to fast forward the boring bits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's a practical solution. I mean, imaginatively though, I mean, someone says football Shabbat dilemma. How do you coin that for them?
You go to Australia,
Yeah, a great
as
idea.
you'll be ahead in time.
Yeah, you got
and
to fly
Shabbat will
east.
be out.
You've got to fly east.
But-
Fly east, people. Fly east. Get as east as possible as you can.
But that also, I'm sure there's a few people who could have gone to the game as well and
Mm.
now can't because of Shabbat.
Yeah,
Which
I
is-
know of a
in
couple
itself
of people.
works.
I know of a couple of people.
Yeah.
And this is very interesting because it ties back into what we were discussing. I know of a couple of people who are season ticket holders, but they're Shabbat observant, and they're now in a position where it's almost impossible for them to give their tickets to someone else or sell them to someone else,
That'd
but
be bad.
they can't physically go
Yeah.
to the game. So that's an interesting one. But
You know, it's so. You think UEFA would put more thought into it. I mean, I remember last year. I mean, it's not just Jews as well because I remember last year I don't know if it's still Ramadan.
It's Ramadan,
this
I
year.
think, this year
So
as
you've got
well.
all the Muslim players.
what's
who,
Salah going to do?
But last year he ate. I heard he ate an hour and a half before the game.
Right,
And I think against Ajax,
Same with Mane, I
against you guys, some of the Ajax players actually had to have food in like the
Yes.
23rd minute.
Yeah.
Ziyech or
And
someone.
you think they?
Yeah.
I know to some degree. Obviously, you can't help it for the semi-finals because you need to have it before the final. But surely there's a way of kind of mitigating that and making sure that the final is inclusive for absolutely everyone.
Yeah.
As in,
Yeah.
you think maybe it used to. It's only recently switched to a Saturday night. It used to always be on a midweek. It used to be on a Wednesday.
Well,
If I remember, it used to always be on a
You've got
Wednesday.
to get the global audience now.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
all about the money. That's
But
it.
as in, you think could they do it on a Sunday afternoon where probably most people would? But as in,
Especially
then,
for England, because it's bank holiday next day, isn't it?
Yeah,
So
it's true.
but as in, it's a
I don't think
difficult.
we're very popular though.
yeah, especially with European
On
bodies.
the
Yeah.
continent, we're not that popular. I don't
Yeah.
think they care about our bank holidays.
But it's just difficult to please everyone. Like as
Yes.
in, the
Yeah.
Arsenal and Chelsea fans have got it lucky that they can go to Baku and watch the game.
Lucky them. Enjoy.
And the Spurs fans have
Fine,
to.
right, yeah.
The Spurs and Liverpool fans are potentially going to have to watch it on record.
On record, but then there's the counter argument as well that like making it on a Saturday, it means people who are already spending a fortune to go take less time off work. So it does help people in a way.
I think that's the view they probably take. Is
No,
But I think I think it's
more
yeah,
money.
any day of the week. I think is going to cost them regardless.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but a
In
Saturday.
theory,
Look, the thinking is you're right. It's the money. The Saturday, everyone's free. You're going to get the highest number of people watching. People who are in countries where maybe they're a little bit forward, they think that, you know what, I can have a late night because I don't have work tomorrow.
Yes.
I think that's the view they've taken, and it sucks for us. But money drives the world, and money especially drives UEFA. So, as you expect, so it's
And
one of those
especially
sort of things.
a global sport like football. I think that I had a great conversation with someone who, and you know, it was a tough one because it was about. He was like, "Come on, you must feel tempted to go." Well, of course, I do. I'm human. I feel tempted.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day as a kid, I would dream of finishing in the top half of the table, like finishing
Yeah.
10th. Was like a massive achievement when I was a kid. So I can definitely sympathise with people who are feeling that like tug of war, that internal like pull one way or the other. But what I said was like the way I think about it, and maybe this is a bit too profound to finish off a podcast with, but the way I think about it is that, you know, we go through life and there are things in life that make us sad and things in life that make us happy, and we kind of know the things that make us happy. And we choose them. And as we get older, we get more accustomed to them, you know, making us happy. We come to rely on them almost. And I said that, you know, you've really got a choice. The whole idea, and as I said, if you stay tuned, we'll reveal the ways to watch the game without breaking Shabbat. The whole idea of it's like spirit of Shabbat, you may have heard of it, which means that even if technically you're not breaking the law and you're not breaking Shabbat itself, it goes against the concept of Shabbat, the idea which we call the spirit of Shabbat. That first originated, just to bore you to death with the history of it, that first originated in the prophet Yeshayahu, or Isaiah in English. And that's like way back when, in First Temple times, when he kind of looked around one day in Jerusalem as one does. There was no light rail. There was a kotel and a temple, so the tourism must have been booming back then. And the exchange rate was much healthier as well. And he looked around and he realised there's a lot of people here who are not breaking Shabbat, but they spend the whole day like making business deals. Money doesn't change hands. No one's signing contracts or anything, but they're just talking about business and sport and entertainment. And he got up and he said to the people, like, you're kind of missing the whole point of what this day is supposed to be about. And he says a really interesting thing. And it was reading this that I got rid of that little twinge of guilt and that pull, that temptation to watch the game as a big Spurs fan, but also as a Jew. And he says a really interesting line. He says, if you connect to Shabbat and the spirit that it is meant to be kept in, he says the source of your happiness is going to be God. And I was like, okay, nice. It's a nice fridge magnet. It's nice. But then when I got thinking about it, and this is what I said to this friend of mine. We make our choices of where we get our happiness from, and there's a difference between a temporary source of happiness and a permanent one. It kind of links back to that whole discussion we started with, where you've got a guy who's just spent upwards of £10,000 to go to the game. Just imagine for a second if he watches his team lose. You haven't watched history, you're probably more disappointed than you've ever been in your entire life, and more crushed, especially if, no disrespect, but Mane does one of his, pirouettes in the area. Don't mention Ali. He does one of his pirouettes in the area. Okay, who probably won't be playing, who hopefully won't be playing. And I just said to him, like, imagine you're that guy. And I said that no problem. So you've watched a historical event, you've watched a once-in-a-generation, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, 100%. But at that moment you realise that because I've attached my happiness to something that's so temporary and so fleeting and so easily destroyed, I'm always going to be chasing the next thrill and the next source of happiness and hoping for it. And I said to him, I think that's what Isaiah meant when he turned around to the people and he said that if you appreciate that the day of Shabbat is when you're connecting to godliness and you're making your source of happiness and contentment and fulfillment God himself, you're actually tapping into a permanent, like eternal and infinite happiness that nothing can ever take away from you. And he said, that's very nice, Rabbi, I'm still going. But I thought it was a nice idea. And that is, I hope with that, in the merit of that, I mean, just to visualize, it's been a pleasure. It's been a real pleasure having you here, Stan and Max, sharing ideas, debating, a bit of arguing, a bit of banter. I mean, I suppose the dumb thing and the traditional thing now is just finish off with official match predictions. Max Purcell. Spurs fans struggle with optimism. It's like DNA, we don't know how to do it.
I'm going 2-1 Spurs.
That was apparently a lie.
I think we'll concede in the first 10 minutes because we always concede in the first 10 minutes of every big game.
Yes, that's what we do. Stan?
I can't see anything but Liverpool win. I think it probably be 3-1. It goes back to last year when we were in the other Champions League final. We're back to back. But
you mentioned it.
Yeah. Have I? Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding us.
It's as long as Vertonghen doesn't pull any dirty tricks on Salah. Not mentioning any names, Sergio Ramos. I think the way we start that game, we look like we're going to go on to win it and dominate. So I can't. And the way that you've been playing this season, Kane's not properly fit, Vertonghen's not.
So you go 3-1.
3-1. Yeah, I think it'll
be. Any way Karius could be brought back and played in goal. That'd be tremendously helpful for us.
Yeah. Unless all of Liverpool's keepers ranging down to the under-15s can't mill.
To be fair, Hugo's due a good moment in the final. I think he done it in the World Cup. He done the World Cup last year.
He's due one of his moments. That's what I always worry about.
He's been too good recently.
What are you going for?
My heart says Spurs are going to battle. And scrape. No. It's going to be a really tight game. I think my heart says Spurs are going to scrape it, but my head, rationally thinking, I think we've lost 2-1 twice to you this season.
You have.
I think, and I'm sorry everyone, but I'm going to go 2-1 Liverpool. I'm sorry.
Shame.
I'll take this off. I'm a traitor. Yeah. Guys, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. And may the best team win.
Yes.
Come on, Spurs.
There we go.
Stand.
And now, as promised, 3 relatively inexpensive ways to watch the Champions League final without breaking Shabbat. So the first way you can do it is